Hello, everyone. Welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar here at Doman International, where we take questions from parents with children with special needs from around the world. And we encourage parents to come to this session with their biggest and toughest questions, and we'll do our very best to answer them. Today, we've got a very special interview lined up. I have Morgan Doman here. Morgan is the head of the Doman Parent Support Group. And so I've asked her to join today so we can talk about the support group, why it is that parents with children with special needs need support, and how they can support each other, and how Doman International can support them. And Morgan is also a staff member of the Doman International Cognitive Development Department. So she's on a regular basis. What she does in our clinic is she's teaching families, how do you teach a child with special needs to read, do math, write, help them with, underlying sensory problems, visual problems, auditory, tactile issues. So that's what Morgan is doing on a regular basis. But every week she hosts the Doman Parent Support Group. And so I've asked her to come on today and talk about it. Morgan, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, and I should say that Morgan is also my sister.
Yeah.
And
Disclaimer.
we might talk a little bit, if it relates to certain topics today, about our childhood. So Morgan, could you just start out by explaining what is the Doman Parent Support Group?
Well, it's a place that, parents can come who are doing the Doman program, where they can find emotional and mental support. When I say parents are doing the Doman methods, that can mean, 1 hour a day. It can mean 8 hours a day. There's no requirement on that at all. It's just a space for parents to come and share what's going on. And of course, when you have a lot of people in a group, you do have to focus on topics or it would get a little out of hand. But, we talk about things like, last week, for example, I talked about, all the things that you can do to improve your self-care and stuff like that. Today, we have our support group later today, and we're going to be talking about the 5 biggest mistakes that I see parents making. It's funny because if you ask me, parents can't really make very many mistakes, but I do see things that get in parents' way, like things that are getting in their way. And so I want to share that this afternoon. But then we also have guests come in, mothers and fathers who have done this before, who have seen incredible changes in their kids or have graduated them completely. And then I also have experts come in and we have discussions about different aspects of the Doman program. We do kind of like a book club, but for Doman lectures, we watch the lecture, then we discuss it with the expert. So it's really a place to be curious and learn more as well. Because something I always think about Doman parents in general is they're so curious. They want to know why their kids are doing what they're doing. Or what's going on in their brain. And so we get to discover and talk about this stuff on a deeper level, after your appointment.
Why do you feel like it's important for parents of kids with special needs, and especially parents who are doing the Doman program, for them to have emotional and mental support? Oh, and by the way, I should have said in the introduction of Morgan is a certified life coach. So that's one of the reasons why she heads this group. So Morgan, why do they need emotional support?
Well, I find that one of the most common things that mothers say to me is that I feel so isolated. I think that having a child with special needs is already very isolating. A lot of people don't understand the situation you're in. It's a very particular part of medicine. It's not something you can cure overnight, and it's a long-term game. And so it's isolating in and of itself. But I think Doman parents feel even more isolated because they're often the outliers in their own communities, right? They're parents that are fighting for their children. They won't take no for an answer. If a doctor says something that they don't agree with, they keep looking for answers. They really believe in being proactive, and so that can also be very isolating because a lot of people don't really like that. A lot of professionals don't like when parents are proactive, so they can be gaslit a lot or just discouraged, and they just feel so isolated. So this was something I was hearing a lot many years ago, and I just I knew that something had to be done and we had to create something for mothers. And it doesn't mean, by the way, that every mom comes to every group. It's not always possible, but for them to know there's always the safety net here for you, and fathers, there's always the safety net here for you. And there's always the support if you ever need it.
Yeah, and I think what you said about Doman parents being proactive is so important. I think it's why they need their own support group, because I remember several years ago, I was talking to a father, and he was doing our program. He had a son with Down syndrome, and he said he had joined some like online support group because he thought, oh, it'd be nice. I can get a support from a community of parents, but also talk about my own experiences. And when he started to talk about his experience with the Doman program and his kid having big achievements, he was kind of told by the admin of the group, like, listen, this isn't really a place for this kind of like positive stuff. Like, we're just here to talk about problems. Like,
Yeah.
no one here wants to hear about your gains. And he was like, I guess this isn't the right place for me then. So I think it's a good reason why parents doing the Doman, excuse me, have doing the Doman program should have their own place for support.
Absolutely. And only Doman parents can understand what they're going through. I just think it's such a unique human experience that you kind of have to be in this world to like know what someone is going through. And, even today, like a mom asked a question about how to help her daughter crawl, and all these mothers are recommending different things. And one of the things I love is like not every kid is the same. So there's like 5 or 6 different recommendations. And this mom now can go try all of them and see which works for her child. So it's also about, sharing ideas. And I think that Doman parents love that. They love to share ideas and to, you know, like that dad, share the wins, but also share what's working because they want to get it working with their kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Our grandfather Glenn used to point this out, that when he'd have a new batch of parents come to his clinic, he might have 30 new families coming in at once. And very often the parents would wait around for the last family to be done just to make sure that they had been accepted onto the program. And he kind of found that amazing, that here were parents with children with special needs, but not only did they have enough love for their child, they had enough love for all the other kids as well. They wanted to make sure they were all winning, and they wanted to share in those wins. And actually, Morgan, one of the things that you also have in the support group is you'll bring on like graduates of the program, like people who have graduated on from the program, or mothers who are succeeding with the program. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Yeah, I really believe that you have to see to believe. We need to see things happening in order to believe it's possible for us, right? Like the easiest analogy to make is like once everyone was told it's impossible to break the 4 minute mile. And then once one man did it, didn't like 8 people do it within a year or something? So that's what I mean by like, we need to see to believe. Once one mom does it, it's so much easier for other moms to do it, and other parents to do it. And so I really think you have to listen to these inspiring stories. And I actually think when you're starting on the Doman method, you do a bunch of research, you're talking to Khalid, you're like getting all these inspiring stories, you're like really active about like reading all the testimonials. But I do think that tapers off actually just naturally as you're starting the program and you're doing it. But it's like, no, you need to keep hearing these stories and keep being immersed in it so that okay, keep going, keep going. And I know for so many mothers, it's so inspiring to hear other stories. And a lot of when I first started this series about either mothers telling the story or the kids themselves coming, or really adults. One of the things that I was concerned about was, well, will the parents who have children with cerebral palsy like resonate with the mothers who are talking about their kids with autism, right? Are we going to alienate mothers? Because in the Doman Parent Support Group, there are children with every diagnosis under the sun: autism, cerebral palsy, ADHD, like everything, all the genetic, components as well. I mean, just everything, right? And one of the things that I found so amazing is that actually for parents, it doesn't really matter what the diagnosis is. I mean, obviously, if the diagnosis is the same as your child, you may be a little bit more alert, but they're all just so inspired to hear each other's story and to hear the accomplishment, because what's so inspiring is the mothers and their hard work and showing up every day and doing it over and over and over again. And that's what they need to hear. They have to hear this is worth it over and over and over again. And so I think it's really inspiring, no matter what the diagnosis is, no matter what the child's background, to hear about moms who continue to work. And this is why I also have senior parents there who have taken their child a long, long way, who maybe aren't graduated yet for whatever reason. But that is so inspiring, to hear as well. Like, we had a few months ago a mom, Katie, on, who talked about getting her boys walking. And yeah, it was just so inspiring for everyone to hear about this mom's 8-year journey in getting her sons walking, right? That's not a day, that's not a week, that's not even a year, right? That's someone who was like super, super consistent and determined. And that was such a great example for all the moms, not just moms who are working on mobility.
Yeah, and Morgan, I advise, parents basically on a weekly basis when they come to our clinic to join the support group. And when families come back for their second, third, fourth visit, and I'll ask them, all right, have you joined the support group yet? Some have and some haven't. One of the interesting things I've kind of noticed is that the moms who, because it is mostly mothers who attend the support group, often I find the mothers who are the most stressed and really having the most difficulty are the least likely to actually join the group. So very often the mom who, things seem to be going smoother, I'll say, oh, have you joined the group? Oh yeah. And I attend each week, or I watch the recordings, or, that they'll say that. And then the mom who's really on the breaking point, she's like, I don't have the time for that. Like, I don't have time for a support group. Like, I don't have time to talk about my feelings. So what do you say to those moms?
Well, I say to those moms, I first of all, I get curious about why they're here because I think every mom kind of is in this state of burnout for different reasons, for her own personal reasons. But I do think that at a certain point, and really any parent's journey having a child with special needs, like we know it as a thing with Doman moms, but honestly, I think this is an issue for all parents who have kids with special needs, is you get to a point where you have to start putting on your oxygen mask sometimes or you will sink, and I literally mean that literally, in the sense that mothers will start having autoimmune disease, like they will start having stress responses, panic attacks, depression, extreme anxiety, because they're not taking care of themselves at all. They're putting everyone else's needs before their own. And the truth is, we're not meant to do this for a prolonged period of time. Every mother who's had an infant knows you have to do this, but mothers as a whole aren't meant to do this long term, right? Maybe 3 to 6 months tops, and then things like should settle down a little bit. But what our mothers have to go through is they have this prolonged giving someone else full attention for so long, but it's not really feasible long term. And so I think so many mothers need to really get honest with themselves and say, what do I need to do to put my own oxygen mask on first? Okay. How can I put my needs first, even for just 5 minutes a day? And for so many moms who are in this loop of extreme anxiety, this can be very, very difficult to do. So I just want to like give you so much compassion and grace, because it's not easy, but you do need to just think about 5 minutes a day. I'm going to put my own needs first. And that may look like, dad is with your children and you go into your room and you read a little bit, or you take a little nap, or you pray a little bit, something that gives you an ability to come back to yourself. I actually heard a story on a podcast this morning about a mom who she would leave. She really was struggling to put herself first and make time for herself. So her husband had a rule: from 7 to 8 a.m. he could be home with the kids. So she wasn't allowed in the house. She had to leave. And you're thinking, what? You're throwing her out? But what this did is it meant this gave this mom 1 hour a day to decompress, go for a long walk. And actually she started to like work out and go to some classes in that hour. But even if you're a mom who wants to walk to a coffee shop and read a book for 20 minutes, I don't care what you do, but just learning to come back to yourself and giving yourself some time to decompress. And what happens is that's just the beginning. You see, when you start to just give yourself a little bit of space to come back to yourself on a daily basis, then you can start branching out. Then you can start doing all the things you need to do for yourself. Maybe you need to work out more, or maybe you need to, do whatever, go out with your friends more. But it just gives you a step forward. And, to all the mothers who are super, super stressed out, I hear you. Okay. It's real. It's real. Your child needs you, but you also have to take accountability for where you are at right now. And I know a lot of people are going, you're so mean talking to moms of kids with special needs like this, but it's true. You have to take accountability for your own feelings and emotions. It doesn't mean it's easy. It may require, coaching or therapy to move through some of this, because you've been through a lot. Like, I have never met a mother of a child with special needs who hasn't been through a lot, who hasn't been gaslit, who hasn't been traumatized by the medical system, who hasn't been traumatized by maybe their child having seizures. It's all really hard to deal with. Okay. So I'm here. I understand what you're going through, but on the flip side, you need to take control back, right? You're letting the anxiety and the stress rule your life, but you need to take it back. And I think what happens to so many moms when they like really take responsibility for their feelings and what's going on, they start to make some really beautiful changes in their life. And I really want to emphasize, it's not the changes. The changes are, unique to every mom. It's that you're taking control and you're saying, okay, what can I do to help myself? What do I need to do? And what's possible right now? And you take control and you make it happen. You will feel so much better. So much better.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And, I guess my question for you is if, but I want to make one quick comment about the like long-term health effects of stress and parents not looking after themselves. I have noticed, now I've been doing this for 18 years, and that's kind of enough time to start seeing trends. And I'm starting to notice a lot more chronic health problems with parents. Uh, uh, I'm noticing a lot more, things like joint pain, back problems, fibromyalgia, mental health issues. Yeah, and probably many things I'm not thinking about
Autoimmune
answering.
disease is a
A
huge
lot
one.
of autoimmune. Yeah,
Thyroid issues, gut issues, mitochondrial issues, all of it. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's a bit of a reflection of like where society has been headed in general, but also I think just burnout is because there are even more distractions now, um, more stress causers, let's say, than there were before. Morgan, my question for you is, what do you say? Some parents will still hear all of this and they'll still say, but my child's problems are more serious than my need to go and read a book each day or go for a walk or whatever it is. How do parents putting themselves first a bit actually help the child?
Yeah. Children, whether they're brain injured or have special needs or not, they learn to be happy from their parents. It's a direct correlation. If your parents are happy people, you know how to be happy. If your parents are stressed, you know how to be stressed, right? And so it's really important to understand that if you come every day to the program or just to life being stressed out and full of anxiety or depressed, you are not showing up in the same way for your child as you would be if you were rested, you felt good. And of course, parenting changes day to day. Like, of course, you're going to have a bad day. You could be, the best self-care guru, but you're still going to have bad days. That's life. But you decrease the bad days significantly and you just make it easier to deal with life itself. And so I really just ask yourself, do you want your child to look back and go, mom was so stressed out? Or, oh God, I had so much fun with mom. She was the best. And, I know I'm sure every mother right now is feeling like extreme guilt. You're going like, oh, I'm not doing that right too. And, it's a colleague like you're laughing. But I think too, it's like, okay, let's just let this go as much as we can and take one step at a time, it is ultimately for your child. It really, really is. And, I did the program really intensely with my mother for about 2 years. And I don't look back on those days as like they were grueling, like I look back at them with joy. Of course, we had bad days, but like it was always fun. She made it super fun. She was always very present with me, and so ultimately for me, it was overall a fun experience. Your children won't, they will remember the majority of days, not the outliers, And so you really, really want to think about that. This isn't really about having a child with brain injury. This is really more about like, how do you want your home to feel? That's Dr. John Delaney. That I just want to make it clear. I totally stole that from a Dr. John Delaney. But really, it's a good question. How do we want our home to feel? Do we want it to be full of joy and happiness and lighthearted, or do we want it to be stressed and depressed and everybody walking on eggshells? It's absolutely 100% the parents who make that decision. And so you need to set the example too.
Yeah, and children, before they can really learn how to regulate themselves, regulate their own emotions, thoughts, feelings, they first learn by co-regulating with their parents, right? By observing, how does my parent respond to this situation? And that helps them with regulating their own feelings. Now, of course, they're not necessarily doing this in a conscious way. But anyone who knows the experience of, if you're walking with a child and they fall down, the first thing they do is they turn to the parent to see, how should I react to this situation? And if the parent's like, the child will burst out into tears. And if the parent's like, oh, you're good, and but let's dust your knees off and keep going, the child is calmed by that. And that makes, when you think about how humans are raised, that makes complete sense. We need to learn what's a danger from our environment, from our parents, right? Because they're the best source to learn that from. So children first learn by co-regulation. The issue is, if a parent is constantly stressed, the child will learn to, basically from their modeling on how to handle these issues. And a lot of children with special needs are actually more in tune with their parents' emotions than other children. Okay. That might be somewhat a survival skill because they're so dependent on their parent. They have to be aware of how they're doing. But I often find, for example, because I work with many, many children diagnosed with autism, very often they're hyperactive, have focus and concentration issues, they're more prone to temper tantrums. I noticed that when parents become more stressed, those children can become incredibly dysregulated. And it's because whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously, they're tuning into mom and dad. How are they doing? Ooh, something's off, and then they start to become off.
Yeah, and from a purely practical point of view about the Doman method, you'll get so much more done if everyone's having fun and we're relaxed and the kid thinks they're having fun all day with mom. Like just like purely practical, you are going to get so much more done, and everything will be so much easier for you and your child. So that's also something to look forward to. And we do see this. I mean, Spencer, I'm sure you've seen this as well, where a mom comes back and she's really done some work and she's taking care of herself, and all of a sudden she's chill. The program gets done 80%, but if it's not 100, whatever, we move on, and the kid's doing great because mom isn't, sinking and feeling terrible all the time.
Morgan, we're starting to get questions from
Oh,
people in the
amazing.
audience. So Haley, who's I believe coming for an appointment in August, is
Yay.
asking, first appointment, is there a social media page for the Doman, support group, or is this something that is introduced after the initial appointment?
Yeah, so we actually have a WhatsApp group, and at your initial appointment, you'll get all the information to sign up for the support group. It's totally free for parents who come for their appointments. Yeah.
Yeah, we purposefully made it free for parents who come for appointments because uh, we believe so strongly they want and need this support. Maud says, Morgan, I avoid support groups like the bubonic plane, but it's great to know you have one. I'm sure it's different from others out there.
I
Morgan,
like
is this support group only open to parents who come for appointments?
No, it's not. It's open to everyone who does a Doman program. Although I have to be honest, it is primarily the people who are on the program with Doman International, but anyone's welcome, especially if you're implementing a Doman program. There is a small monthly fee if you haven't had an appointment in the last 6 months, but it's very small.
Yeah, and the fee is more there. Again, we never created this with the idea of making money. It's more to make sure that only parents are there who are serious about being
Mhm.
there. Yeah. Okay. So Maud is saying that she thinks her daughter feeds off of her energy.
Mhm.
It's interesting how when I approach her with everything like a game, she's up for it and a lot more cooperative as opposed to me being in beast mode and checking off everything for the day. Yeah, that's great. She can sense the burnout a mile coming. I think it's so important for our energies to be in check before
Mm.
this program. What do you say to that, Morgan?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that being able to observe this mod is amazing, because I think a lot of moms get so frustrated and they're like, why isn't this working? And it's like, well, let's start with you. How is your energy coming into the program is such a great place to start. And kids in general they love a game. They love being with their parents, but it's when we try and make it something serious and hard that kids go, no, they don't have that on their agenda for the day. So I think it's really fabulous that you've discovered this, and I appreciate you sharing it because I think it really helps other, mothers and fathers say, oh, okay, how am I feeling right now? And check in with yourself. Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question here from Virginia. Virginia says, my child does not obey instructions. Like he forgets quickly. Yeah, so I think what Virginia is saying that sometimes she gives him instructions and I guess he either forgets or maybe he gets distracted. Virginia, yeah, I mean, some overall thoughts here. So the one thing I'm not sure about, from your message is this an issue of behavior where a child is choosing not to do something? Or is this an issue of neurological disorganization and getting distracted, right? Which happens with many children. You'll tell them to do something and they start to do it, and then they get distracted by something visually or auditorily in their environment, and now they're off onto something else. And this is an important difference, because if a child's not doing something out of behavior, they're making an intentional decision. And if it's something neurodevelopmental, like they get distracted easily, it's obviously not something out of a bad intention. And the way that assuming that we're talking about a child that is having this difficulty because it's a neurological issue, what we would do is there are many programs that we recommend that can help improve focus and concentration and reduce distraction. So, I mean, just to name a few off the top of my head, we have the Doman oxygenation program. It's very good for improving focus and concentration. We have specific sensory programs like the Safe and Sound Protocol, which is, we've been talking today about the ability to regulate yourself, regulate emotion. Safe and Sound Protocol is very helpful for that. So for children that have these specific kinds of issues, we recommend specific activities to improve focus and concentration, reduce hyperactivity. Morgan, any additional thoughts you have on that?
No, I don't. I think you covered it all there. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Let's see if we've got other questions here.
Oh, Virginia wrote back. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Virginia says, I think it's neurological. He gets back to it after a while. How do I do oxygenation? Okay, Virginia. So the Doman oxygenation program is described briefly in our new books. So in our book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, and the book Answering Autism, we talk a bit about it. It's a program that requires a doctor's approval, okay, because it's a respiratory program which is focused on increasing oxygen delivery to the brain. Oxygen is the food of the brain, right? We can survive a couple weeks without water or food, but we can only survive 3 or 4 minutes without oxygen. So our brain cells need oxygen to survive and function correctly. And so we have a respiratory program which is focused on increasing oxygen delivery to the brain that helps the brain function better. So in order to do it, you need a doctor's approval, okay? Most parents get that doctor's approval when they come for their initial visit and they see our medical director, who will see the child and clear them. If they cannot come to Doman International for an appointment, then we can provide information that they can bring to their doctor, with the hopes of getting approval. All right. Colleen, do you have any questions for Morgan about the Doman Parent Support Group?
Yeah. So I've been privileged to be in a couple of the sessions, and they were great. Do you feel that who is the best candidate for? Because I think you've touched on this a number of times, and I think it bears repeating again and again. There's often a mother who's like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Right. Would you agree that that's the mother who needs to come in the most?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to those moms too, like the Doman support group isn't going to be the answer to everything, but it's a place that can just start being an answer. And sometimes clearing an hour just for yourself once a week in and of itself is a practice of self-care. Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of mothers, it's a moment to, I don't know, grandma comes over, watches your kid, and you go into the back room and you just join us on the support group. And, you come share your ideas and thoughts and just be for an hour. That alone can get you started feeling just a little bit calmer and a little bit more like a person who, has some interests, and I think, that's learning. That kind of thing alone can be so, so wonderful. I know a lot of moms, and I'm always like, I know a lot of moms love to learn. Doman moms are notoriously amazing at research, mm-hmm. And which is how they find us. But what I think is really important, though, is a lot of mothers love to learn. It's actually an outlet for them. I actually know a lot of mothers on this program who are like going for their like MBA and stuff. I'm always like, don't start a master's program, but they love to learn. So taking classes is a great place to start as well. Some random thing like sewing can be, just an hour every week to come back to yourself, or a challenge is also a really great way to get yourself out, doing something different. But yeah, I mean, I think moms who are curious, who are stressed, who are feeling good, that's the other thing. If you're feeling great, if things are going really well, come join us and share how you got to where you are. Because I really love when moms share with other mothers. I think that's really how everyone ends up learning. So yeah, I would say though, like ideally, find us when you need us. We'd love to have you. And yeah, ideally, mom of a child with special needs who needs extra support.
I mentioned the Doman Method book before, and I didn't have my copy nearby, so I just wanted to show it here. I wrote this book with my dad, Douglas, and it's our foundational book. So I see a question here from Shanika on Facebook. Shanika says, my child has speech issues that causes him to have behavioral issues at school due to not being able to express his emotions. I need help. He's 13 years old and I have no support and feel really bad. I'm sorry, Shanika. That's a really, really tough situation. And I want to say that in my experience, when we talk about social and emotional development, so in Shanika's case, we're talking about behavioral issues. Really successful social and emotional development is very dependent on how is the child developing in other areas. So Shanika comments here on speech development. You need speech to communicate with most people, right? And so speech development, very important for making relationships, but also just the ability to talk about what you want and think and need, right? It's very, very important for emotional, development for a child. So I agree with you, Shanika. Like, to help his behavior, one of my first focuses would be improving his speech development. Now, I would say it's more than just that. Very often, when we look at certain nutritional changes, it can be very helpful for behavior. Last week, I had Dr. Aravind on, who's our Director of Nutrition and Health, and he pointed out that I think more than half of our neural hormones are produced in the gut. But I believe if you look at specifically serotonin, I think 90 to 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut, right? And these are the kind of feel-good chemicals that are very important for humans. So if our gut function is not normal, it's going to be much more likely to produce irritability or a lack of energy or focus or impact mood. So Shanika, there are, for a child like your child, we would really focus first on how can we make sure that we are providing everything from like a nutritional, a speech development, a sensory perspective. And then we'll often find that social development starts to fall into place because we're helping the child in those other areas. Shanika, if you're new to our program, I would recommend the same book I just recommended to Virginia, the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. Now, if your child happens to have an autism diagnosis, we also have this other book called Answering Autism, the Doman Method Plan for Autism, ADD, and Neurodevelopmental Delays. These books are available on Amazon. You can get them as an ebook, paperback, or even as an audiobook. We purposely put out an audiobook because we know a lot of parents don't have a lot of time to read. So it's something you can listen to in the car. But I would highly recommend you start with books. And also, jump onto a call with Colleen. Colleen, could you talk a little bit about jumping on a call, like first call with you, what that's like?
Yeah, absolutely. So for families who are just learning about the Doman Method, you can reach out to me. You can send us a direct message through Instagram or Facebook because I see all of those. You can email me directly at info at domaninternational.org. That's actually my personal email address for the organization. And, let me know a little bit more about your kid and we'll get a call scheduled. I can actually send you a link ahead of time so you can watch a little more about what the Doman Method encompasses. And then we can chat about the kinds of things that we do and how we can help. We're all about empowering parents. So it's not about, coming to a center every week or something like that. It's more about giving you, concrete steps for your child that are tailored to his needs, but also empowering you for, your whole life so that you always have this information and can apply it as he grows.
Yeah, and Shanika says here that she signed up for a call with you, Colleen.
Oh, sweet. Okay, excellent.
She'll be getting the book too, which is
wonderful.
Great.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Morgan, could you talk a little bit, just taking a step back, about you mentioned that our mom did the program with you for a couple of years. Could you just talk about that experience?
Yeah, so I had a brain injury right after birth. Some events happened that caused it, and by the time I was like 6, it became quite obvious I had some serious neurological issues. I couldn't read. I had a really bad memory, like I was like a little child with dementia. I wasn't able to do math and really wasn't able to do almost anything at school because I couldn't read. And so I was quite behind. And so my mother, who is a expert in physical development and also the clinical director of Doman International, she put her career on hold and started the program with me very intensely. We did it for about 2 years, and I had a very interesting injury in many ways. Like, it wasn't something common, but my mom just kept at it. She kept, doing the program with me very diligently, and eventually I kind of had a switch almost. That's how it felt like to me. I don't actually know if that's how it looked like to mom, but it was almost like a switch. One day I could just literally read after she had put so much time and effort into input. I was finally able to have some output, right? So we input things into the brain, we teach and teach and teach, but then the output is being able to read, being able to write, and things like that. So yeah, I had that experience. I remember it to this day, being on a couch and reading just a book from start to finish. And it was an easy book, but it was still a book, which for me at the time was like enormous. And yeah, I am so grateful for the experience looking back, because I think it puts me in a unique position to support parents, since I know what it's like to be on the kid side. And then, in the last 10 years, one of my favorite things to do is to go to people's houses and do the program with them. I've gotten the honor to do this, on many different continents and with many different families. And it's so fun to help them implement the program. And yeah, the program is really fun because my mother always had fun with me. I see it as a fun time, even now as an adult. And so it's really an honor to get to be on both sides and just witness. I'm still shocked, even now that I'm a staff coach and I coach my own families. I'm still shocked. I have a mom on the program 1 month, and the kids, speech articulation has soared to a point where people are commenting outside the family, right? Like, they're like, whoa, what do you do? A month, it's like, sometimes it's crazy how fast even just a little tiny bit of program can make a huge change in a kid's life. And to this day, I'm always surprised. I don't know why. I'm always like, what? That's crazy, but yeah, that's kind of my background.
Maureen, if someone had stepped into our house when you were 7 or 8 years old doing the program, what are the kinds of activities, what are the Doman Method activities they would have seen you doing with mom?
Well, it's a lot of crawling and creeping. So getting down on our stomach and crawling like army crawl, a lot of creeping, a lot of oxygenation, a lot all day long, oxygenation. at the time, the nutrition program wasn't fully developed actually, but I was being taken off dairy. I didn't have dairy and very little gluten, and sugar, of
No,
course.
no sugar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the cognitive program, reading all day, math. Um, yeah, and because I also got to do some experimental programs, which is kind of fun. At the time, new things for Doman Method, that I look back on very fondly. But yeah, and brachiation as well, like monkey bars. We did that as well. That's what it looked like. It looked like fun. Okay, we're gonna crawl, we're gonna go creep, then we're gonna do some reading. I mean, for me, it was always just okay, let's do it. And even as I got older, and I've been doing it for a year or two, and it was getting okay. Mom always made it fun. I had a checklist, so I became self-determined at a certain point. Like, okay, I've finished this checklist, let's go. And I would, try and do it as fast as I could. And sure, were there really difficult days where I was a troublemaker, or we were tired? Of course, but those days were not that common, at least for my memory. And we always had a really good time.
Yeah. Great. All right. I'll give everyone another minute or two to type any other questions into the comments box.
Colleen looks
We do have a couple of other questions I think we didn't address. Maud had asked about if we worked with schools or if we're open to working with schools.
There it is. So yeah, Maud, good question. So are we open to working with schools? In the past, we've done some work with, for example, kindergartens. These are mostly schools for well neurotypical kids who want to implement our early reading, early math programs. So we have done a bit of that in the past, but our main focus has always been parents. Yeah. And then for schools, for example, with children with special needs, the answer is no. And a lot of that has to do with just differences in philosophy. A lot of children that are in special education programs, for example, aren't even taught to read. It's kind of amazing how many families, when they come to us, they'll come with a 12-year-old child, and the child's never been taught to read, write, or do math in school, because it was just assumed they never do it. So we have a very different philosophy. This is someone who I got a master's degree in early childhood education, and just we have major disagreements with how children with special needs are taught. We have a lot of issues with the way all children are taught, but especially children with special needs.
Yeah, and I think too, if a professional is open to something new, or of course we do have professionals in schools that love the Doman method, but usually it's not a good fit.
Anyone can take the courses at Doman Learning, and we spoke a little while ago to a school administrator who had taken our courses and was interested in implementing the programs in her preschools, and was actually implementing certain things with a lot of success. So anyone can go to domanlearning.com and sign up for the courses.
Spencer, in case this was kind of part of the question, or Colleen, can kids be on the program? Can you be doing a home program with your child and they be going to school?
Yes. The answer is yes. Yeah, absolutely. And we do have I'd say a significant number of kids that do both. And I really do think it comes down to the specific child, what's their age, what's the family situation, and why is the child in school, right? Because for certain families, it may not be an option. It might be like, we need to do this so that we have the opportunity to work, or something like that, and we need to do that. But other families, when they hear about our program and they realize, oh, we could utilize the whole day at home, and we're disappointed, we feel our child isn't even learning anything in school, or it's not a good social experience, now that we have the opportunity to bring them home and do the program with them, we'll do it. So it depends on the family. And no, we don't ask anyone to make any fast, rash decisions. There's no, you have to do this to come onto the program. So I really feel like that's something that is decided amongst the clinical staff and the family when they begin the program. Anything the two of you want to add to that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. It is interesting in my experience, as a mother and also as someone who grew up on this program, and my daughter is now 20 and has attended a variety of schools, including homeschooling and private school and public school and all of that. It can be so difficult when you see something very clearly in terms of child development, and you think this would be so beneficial to my local school or the little, what, all of this great stuff, when you realize that there are people who want to hear about it and there are people who absolutely don't. And it can be really challenging to kind of give up that dream of, oh, I'm going to revolutionize my kid's preschool and then it's just going to grow from there and it'll be amazing. We have 70 years under our belts now, so the dream keeps coming up, and maybe one day. But I think the key is, for families to recognize, if you have your own philosophy strong in your mind, and in your heart, your family's philosophy in terms of your child's capabilities and potential, then you can steer things in the right direction, even if they have to go to school or, and so giving yourself a little grace there, but also recognizing that you might get some pushback from time to time and just keep on sticking to it. No, I am the parent. I know my child better than anybody, and I know their potential. It's fantastic. So there's no need to accept, other people's limitations. Also, it's like sometimes, hey, my kid's in school and this teacher's very sweet, but she really thinks that he's kind of not all there. And after this year, he won't have to deal with her anymore. So,
I'm just going to answer a quick question that we got in Spanish on Instagram, which is asking if we have our book. So I'm just going to speak in Spanish for 30 seconds, okay? Sí, Sandra, tenemos un libro en español que se llama El Método Doman de Necesidades Especiales al Bienestar. También tenemos una página en Instagram y Facebook en español y tenemos un representante, Marialba Mata, que habla español. Si tienes preguntas, puedes seguir nuestra página y hacer preguntas a nuestra página en Instagram, ¿ok? El libro está disponible en Amazon. Okay. All right. Good Spanish practice. All right. Let's see. I see there's a question here from Virginia who's asking about specific supplements like DMG and magnesium. So Virginia, DMG and magnesium are supplements that are sometimes recommended by our nutritionists to parents. So I can say that for certain children, those supplements can be helpful. But I can't say for a child that I don't know and I haven't met whether the supplement is good for them. And I would say this about basically any supplement, even a supplement like a probiotic or a vitamin C, things that are generally good for digestion, good for immunity. Even those things I would never say, I've never met your kid before, give this supplement. Because some children do not respond to certain supplements well. Certain children don't need certain supplements. And so what our nutrition team does is every child that comes to the clinic, we ask for specific lab work to be done, like blood and urine tests. And then the nutrition team looks at the values of that specific child. And then depending on that, and also the other challenges the child has, if it's learning challenges or hyperactivity or focus, or they will recommend specific supplements to help with those underlying issues. Good question. All right.
There's a question here asking where to find the link to book with Colleen.
Yeah, Colleen, where can people find the link to book with you?
It's not so much a link as it is just to send me an email. Fatima and I actually know each other. So Fatima, I'm going to email you. You're fine.
And then Colleen, what if someone doesn't know you? How would they
don't know me? Yes, exactly. Send us a direct message through Instagram or Facebook, or email me directly, info@domaninternational.org. Or you can also send me a WhatsApp message if that's easier. My number is country code 1-814-232-8668.
So there's the email address there, info@Doman International. And then there is Colleen's phone number. I'll leave that up for a few seconds. All right.
Yeah, but definitely, if anybody misses that message, doesn't have just a direct message, it always comes to me as well. There really aren't that many of us, so
Yeah.
so odds are I'm going to see any message that you send.
So Morgan, if someone wants to join the Doman Parent Support Group, how do they do that?
Great question. Probably the simplest thing is to email Colleen, and then she'll forward it to me, and I'll send you all the info you need. If that's okay, Colleen?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Totally
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put up Colleen's email address one more time. So shoot Colleen a question, and she will either answer you or put you in touch with Morgan.
Exactly. Or again, if you're watching this, a week from now or more on YouTube or whatever, please just put a comment or send us a direct message. Don't be shy.
Colleen's a really nice person.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So is Morgan. But there's never any obligation either, folks. Like I know that sometimes the feeling is, oh, if I start this, maybe I'll get involved in a thing, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. We want to give you information, and if it's a little bit of information at a time, and maybe a year from now you're like, okay, we're ready to go, that's okay. I mean, everybody needs to find their timing.
Absolutely right. All right, everyone. Well, I think we're all out of time. Morgan, thanks so much for joining us today. Colleen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, thanks, Morgan. It's great.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Bye.